Coming up on Global Business, bilateral ties, President Xi Jinping highlights the importance of peace and stability during his conversation with U.S. President Joe Biden. A magnitude 7.3 earthquake hits off the eastern coast of Taiwan region, the strongest to shake the island in decades. And falling inflation, Eurozone inflation fell unexpectedly, solidifying the case for the European Central Bank to start lowering borrowing costs from record highs. Hello and welcome to this edition of Global Business on CGTN. I'm Guan Xing in Beijing. First up in the program, Chinese President Xi Jinping has spoken with U.S. President Joe Biden at the request of the latter. The two leaders had a candid and in-depth exchange of views on bilateral ties. In Tuesday's phone call, President Xi said the China-U.S. ties are stabilizing as officials from both sides act on the leaders' agreements reached at their San Francisco meeting last November. He also pointed out the negative factors of bilateral ties have been growing, and this requires attention from both sides. President Xi underscored three overarching principles of China-U.S. ties. First, peace must be valued. The two sides should emphasize no conflict and no confrontation. Second, stability must be prioritized. The two countries should refrain from provoking incidents or crossing red lines. Third, credibility must be upheld. China and the U.S. should honor their commitments to each other with action and turn the San Francisco vision into reality. President Joe Biden said the U.S.-China relationship is the most consequential relationship in the world. Biden reiterated that the United States does not seek a new Cold War or conflict with China, nor does it seek to change China's system. In the meantime, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is set to embark on her second visit to China in 9 months on Thursday. She will begin her 2-day stay in the southern city of Guangzhou before proceeding to Beijing for 2 more days of talks. Our Owen Fairclough reports.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen was part of the Washington vanguard that helped thaw relations between the U.S. and China, visiting Beijing last July to help both sides reconnect before Chinese President Xi Jinping met his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden in California last November. Now Yellen is returning to Beijing to continue the face-to-face meetings that have been re-established after trade disputes drove relations to a low point. Policymakers hope the world's two biggest economies can find common ground developing clean energy to mitigate climate change. But flashpoints remain.
China's new energy industry had thrived because of technological innovation and reliable quality cultivated in the process of global competition, not because of subsidies. Speaking of subsidies, the U.S. side distorts fair competition and disrupts global supply chains by implementing measures such as the Inflation Reduction Act that includes tax relief measures violating WTO rules and market economy principles.
The European Union has made similar complaints to the U.S. about the green energy subsidies offered in Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, distorting the market, even as member states like Germany incentivizes its own industries to go green with subsidies. Owen Fairclough, CGTN, Washington.
China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said on Wednesday that China remains open to mutually beneficial cooperation with the U.S. on economic and trade fronts.
The economic relationship between China and the United States is rooted in the common interests of both countries. Two big countries like China and the United States should not cut off their ties or turn their back on each other, still less slide into conflict or confrontation. The two countries should respect each other, coexist in peace, and pursue win-win cooperation. The relationship should continue moving forward in a stable, sound, and sustainable way, rather than going backward.
In recent months, there has been a notable increase in high-level exchanges and communication between the United States and China. Our Hou Jin delves deeper into the ties between these two countries.
Several U.S. company leaders, including Apple's Tim Cook, Qualcomm's Cristiano Amon, and Macro Technologies' Sanjay Mehrotra, recently visited China. Their visits demonstrated positive prospects for the Chinese market and a commitment to strengthening bilateral ties. Tim Cook emphasized China's critical supply chain, while Cristiano Amon highlighted the importance of partnerships between American and Chinese enterprises. Macro Technologies CEO expressed a firm commitment to long-term development and investment in China. During the 2024 World Forum for Asia, several officials expressed their views on China-U.S. relations. Let's hear what some of them have to say.
I think we can have a relationship that would be a gift to the world. The whole world wants us to get along. It's one of the things I've noticed here is people from every country I talk to, they want the U.S. and China to figure out a way to get along, and we have to. We're going to, we're going to be around for a long time, and I think we owe it to ourselves and to the world.
Look, I think there's quite a lot of discussion going on between the two countries privately, amongst economists, amongst trade people. They're talking all the time. I think it's, one has to aim below the top level stuff generally and ask about the technical level. And technical level, I think there's a lot more, partnership, attempts to really build a partnership than there has been for some time. So I'm more optimistic about that going forward.
Well, I think that the US and China were very helpful in getting the Paris Agreement, the original climate agreement put in place. And I think with a bit of luck, we'll see again that kind of collaboration for the next 10 years. We really need it.
I really hope that, we could hand in hand to protect our planet by, expanding diplomatic cooperation, by helping each other to develop and our economy as well as human capital, so that we could own people in the world can join hand in hand and moving forward for a brighter future.
And from a macro perspective, bilateral tie remains a crucial aspect of the relationship between China and the U.S. Despite encountering various challenges since 2018, in September of last year, both countries took steps to implement the significant consensus reached during the Bali meeting between their respective leaders. This led to the establishment of working groups in the economic field, such as the Economic Working Group and Financial Working Group. Subsequently, several meetings had been held between the two sides to stress permanent matters. And to facilitate increased communication between the two countries, the number of flights operated by Chinese aviation companies between China and the U.S. is allowed to increase from 35 to 50 flights per week, and with U.S. companies increasing from to 50 flights as well, which was allowed by the Department of Transportation. Air China operated first flight from Beijing to New York City, marking the beginning of this round of increased flights on U.S.-China routes.
And now we're heading for a short break. Still to come on Global Business. A magnitude 7.3 earthquake hits off the eastern coast of Taiwan region, the strongest to shake the island in decades.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global Business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business, only on CGTN.
At least 10 people have been killed and more than 900 injured after magnitude 7.3 earthquake struck off the coast of Taiwan region's Hualien City this morning. Officials said the quake was the strongest to hit the island in decades and warned of more tremors in the days ahead. A spokesperson for the Taiwan Affairs Office of the State Council said Beijing is paying close attention to the disaster and is willing to provide relief assistance. Our reporter Patrick Falk reports on the latest from Taipei.
there have been at least 100 aftershocks recorded since that initial quake struck at 8 a.m. This morning, some of them measuring above magnitude 6 on the Richter scale, and reports are also saying that some of these aftershocks to come could be nearly as big as the initial quake that struck. Authorities here have said that the priority right now is saving lives. Notably, they've also been calling on people to verify news reports to ensure that help gets to the people that need it the most right now. Tomorrow marks the start of Qingming Festival. The quake struck just a day ahead of a 4-day long weekend here, and I've been speaking to some travelers who said that they are concerned about the situation. They'll be keeping a close eye on developments and changing their travel itineraries accordingly. There's also been reports of people deciding to scrap their travel plans coming to Taiwan given the situation.
Taipei residents were rattled by this morning's quake, which knocked out power in several parts of the area. And let's hear what some of them have to say.
It was shaking very violently. All the motorcycles outside our house toppled over, so I quickly switched off the gas and the electrical source and opened the main door.
When I realized it was an earthquake, I quickly put on my clothes and shoes. Then I dragged the kid with me and ran down the stairs. I didn't bring anything else with me.
Asian stocks experienced a decline led by emerging markets due to concerns of the global chip supply chain following a magnitude 7.3 earthquake in Taiwan. Taiwan's Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC, a leading chip manufacturer, saw a drop of almost 1.3% in its Taipei-listed shares. TSMC, which produces 70% of its chips in Taiwan, had to halt some chip making and evacuate certain plants after the earthquake. However, the benchmark Taiwan weighted index rebounded before the close, with only a 0.6% decrease. In Shanghai, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia also saw modest losses in their respective markets. TSMC said earlier that it was still assessing the overall impact on production. Tremors have also been reported across the Taiwan Straits in Fujian, Guangdong, Shanghai, Zhejiang, and Jiangsu. Some schools in Xiamen evacuated students to safety. Local residents in Zhejiang also reported significant wobbling of their homes. Meanwhile, the earthquake caused widespread train delays and cancellations in East China's Fujian and Jiangxi provinces. Passenger and cargo train services have been halted in the affected regions as railway authorities conducted safety inspections on tracks, bridges, tunnels, and signaling equipment. Some trains have since resumed operations after completing inspections. And now we're heading for another short break. Still to come on the program. Falling inflation, Eurozone inflation fell unexpectedly, solidifying the case for the European Central Bank to start lowering borrowing costs from record highs.
Here on Biz Talk, we connect the dots, shedding light on the real stories behind the economic landscape. To better understand China's dynamism and the economies and rhythms of business, propelling new drivers of growth.
China.
Biz Talk, your window into China and the global economy. Only on Biz Talk.
Eurozone inflation continued its downward trend in March, with annual consumer price growth dropping to 2.4%. Eurostat, the statistical office of the European Union, also released the key data on the unemployment rate in the 20-nation euro area and the EU. And these figures show minimum change from the high levels recorded in January. For more on this, let's cross over to our reporter Ishan Garg in Brussels for further updates. Hi there, Ishan. Good to see you. So does a cooling inflation rate provide the ECB with more room to consider a reduction in interest rates?
Certainly, and a reduction in the interest rates for the ECB has been on the cards for a very long time. There are lots of businesses across Europe who have been looking forward to it. There have been speculations about interest cuts all the way from January, but in the past few weeks we have seen statements coming from ECB head Christine Lagarde saying that once the inflation is well under control, only then is the bank going to look at rate cuts down the line. And there is an expectation that that may happen sometime in June as well. Just recently we had comments coming in from ECB member and the Austrian officials as well, saying that rate cuts are certainly looking more and more possible. But when we look at the inflation numbers, it certainly looks that these figures are representative of what's happening in different parts of the continent, because there are some countries, for example, I've got the table in front of me, like Finland, where the inflation numbers are incredibly low, close to 1%. But there are countries like Belgium, where I am right now, where the numbers are closer to 4%. So it's indicative that if a rate cut does happen, it's going to impact different countries differently across the bloc.
And Ishan, what measures will the EU implement to address the persistent unemployment rate?
Well, some of the unemployment data, which is very similar to what we've seen in the past couple of months as well, hovering around the 6.5% mark, depending on which way you look at it. It's partly, according to analysts, due to some of the recent impacts on the manufacturing sector, some of the recent impact in the construction sector, and that's where the European Union can play a huge role in terms of coming up with policy and in terms of how to boost manufacturing across the board. But it will ultimately be down to member states, especially big economies like France and Germany, who can make a huge dent in this unemployment figure down the line. So it's expected that as factory output data comes in the next couple of months, with additional amount of funding, if that does happen from big economies, this number could potentially change down the line.
Well, thank you very much for the timely update. That was Ishan Garg for us in Brussels. Manufacturing activity across the Eurozone continued to decline in March and remained in contraction territory, according to the latest PMI figures. And CGTN's Peter Oliver provides an update on the situation from Berlin.
The EU's PMI figures have contracted yet again. They were down to 46.1 for March, down almost half a point on the numbers that were posted back in February. Here in Germany, it was an even worse picture nationally, with the number coming in at 41.9. Both of those figures, the EU one and the German national figure, both well below the 50-point threshold, which is seen as an indicator of optimism in an economy by purchasing managers. One of the reported reasons for the downturn has been long waiting times for suppliers, with anecdotal evidence suggesting the disruption to Red Sea shipping is affecting supply chains. New orders and output were both down. Manufacturers' purchasing power was also seen to be down among those who were surveyed. On a brighter note, manufacturers expressed renewed confidence for the upcoming 12 months. The companies spoken to said that they had high hopes for the back end of 2024 when it comes to orders and new products, but tempered this by saying their expectations were significantly subdued due to the ongoing global uncertainty. It was much better news in Italy, where PMI figures came in at a robust 50.4, as opposed to the 48.8 that had been predicted. Not everything is rosy in the Italian manufacturing sector. Inventory levels are on the decline, as is purchasing power, but Italian industrialists are feeling pretty good overall about the way things are headed. Top of the class among Eurozone nations when it comes to the figures issued on Tuesday is Spain. Their PMI numbers 51.4 above the 51.0 predicted. Spanish industry feeling buoyed by the GDP predictions of 1% growth in the first quarter of this year, something many in the Eurozone could only dream of. Manufacturing in Spain is also stepping up hiring. All of that sure to leave Germany wondering what it must do to kickstart its economy. Peter Oliver, CGTN, Berlin.
Moving on to some other business news that we're tracking at this hour. Turkey's annual inflation reached 68.5% in March, which was a contributing factor to significant losses for the ruling party in the local elections. In Germany, there was positive news For the automotive industry, according to the German Economic Institute (IFO), there was a notable improvement in business sentiment in March. The sector's business climate indicator rose to minus 5.8 points, marking the highest level since May of the previous year. And China has relaxed the lending policy for personal use cars in a bid to stimulate consumption. Under the new policy, financial institutions are now permitted to determine maximum loan percentages based on the creditworthiness of borrowers. China's services sector experienced an accelerated expansion in March, driven by a surge in new business activity. The Caixin China General Services Purchasing Managers Index rose to 52.7, surpassing February's reading of 52.5. A reading above 50 indicates expansion, while below 50 represents contraction. This marks the 15th consecutive month that the index has remained above the expansion threshold, indicating sustained growth in China's services sector. According to the official press released by Caixin, the acceleration in services expansion was underpinned by faster growth in new business. The report also highlighted a notable improvement in business confidence, which increased for the first time in 3 months. Companies are optimistic about the potential impact of new products, expansion plans, and larger client budgets on boosting sales. A ceramic art exhibition themed China White, Dehua Porcelain, is on its global tour. The exhibition is to further promotion and expand the influence of this 1,000-year Chinese cultural heritage in the global market.
Elegant flowers paired with exquisite porcelain, decorating the United Nations building overlooking the East River, where this event was held, attracted the United Nations officials and dignitaries from multiple countries to take a close view of the national treasure Dehua White porcelain, which is white as snow, smooth as jade, thin as paper, and sounds like the chimestone.
It just has so many details. It's a very impressive piece, and I had to really take a precise look to make sure it is a porcelain.
I mean, this is the best art I've seen today of all the art, Asian art I've seen throughout the city. It's the transparency, the delicacy.
In addition to ceramic exhibitions, Dehua has also held a series of ceramic cultural seminars and industrial docking activities during the international tour, providing the platform for Dehua porcelain enterprises to observe the market, search for business opportunities, and expand orders. This allows the enterprises to directly contact with foreign clients, show and promote porcelain products to them. Exhibitors in the popular China White exhibitions has also reaped rich rewards. Many enterprises signed multiple orders during this event.
My biggest feeling this time is that we are able to get closer to foreign customers for the first time. I brought more than 600 pieces this time. We received many orders and met many clients at the event. I am confident of getting more orders at this exhibition.
With a history of making porcelain for more than 3,700 years, Dehua is the earliest Chinese ceramic producing area with a large amount of export sales. In 2023, the county's ceramic output value reached over 57 billion yuan, a rise of nearly 15%, with 60% of the value coming from the exports of Western-style craft porcelain. The European and American countries are Dehua's largest porcelain export markets.
We plan to promote Dehua White porcelain in over 20 countries and regions in the next 4 years. We not only produce and display exquisite porcelain, but also want to further promote it to the world.
As reported, the China White Dehua Porcelain International Tour exhibition was launched in 2023, planning to organize a series of activities such as exhibitions, cultural exchanges, and other events representing Dehua White porcelain in more than 20 countries and regions over a period of 5 years, to further expand the international influence of Dehua as the world's ceramic cities.
Despite the rain, a large crowd of South Korean fans gathered today to bid a heartfelt farewell to Fubao, the giant panda born in South Korea, embarked on a journey from the very zoo where she was born to be flown back to her homeland in China. And Su Mingyu has more from the zoo in Korea's Yongin province.
Fubao, the giant panda who has brought immense joy to millions of South Koreans, bids adieu to the country. As she embarks on her journey back to the China Conservation and Research Center for Giant Panda in southwest China's Sichuan province, emotions run high among fans who have cherished her every playful move.
Giant panda Fubao, whose popularity is set to rival that of K-pop idols, bade farewell to South Korean admirers. Now, despite a heavy downpour today, fans gathered, shedding tears as they poured out heartfelt messages for the departing panda.
Since I'm sending Korea's happiness back to China, I hope Fubao will receive more love and be happy in China as well.
The transfer of the precious panda has put Everland on high alert. Every detail from the exact departure time to the flight itinerary after arrival in China has been treated as a closely guarded secret. For those who have grown fond of Fubao, Everland, having initially contemplated a quiet departure for her, has decided to honor the panda's departure with a small yet meaningful farewell event. As the vehicle carrying Fubao departed, fans bade an emotional farewell to the endearing panda.
Fubao was the one who gave me life's biggest happiness. As she transitions to adulthood in China, I hope she finds a wonderful partner and continues to be happy, just as she did here in Korea. Take care, dear Fubao.
We welcome Fubao back to China. She will be treated very well in China.
Thank you, Korean people, for their love to Fubao.
Fubao will be transported in a special non-vibration car typically used for semiconductor transportation. Fubao will board a chartered plane to Sichuan province, accompanied by a dedicated team including the renowned Fubao grandpa, breeder Kang Choron, and a seasoned Chinese vet. The renowned panda grandpa Kang Choron, despite his mother's sudden death the day before, remained determined to accompany Fubao to China on Wednesday.
Fubao, I believe you will thrive wherever you are, as long as your grandfather is by your side on the way back home. I will take good care of your mom, dad, and younger siblings.
Emotional bonds with zookeepers played a crucial role in Fubao's life. Fans and experts also say that Fubao's adorable appearance was the key to her widespread popularity. Her chubby frame seems to trigger an automatic smile among viewers.
Fubao's big head is what makes her uniquely endearing. My attachment to her grows stronger as I watched her enjoy the bamboo feasts and carrot water.
During the pandemic, Fubao emerged as a beacon of solace for those grappling with isolation and loneliness. As Fubao embarks on her next chapter, netizens extended their heartfelt wishes to the endearing panda who touched their hearts and brought solace during challenging times. Yu Su-min, CGTN, Yongin.
And that will do for this edition of Global Business on CGTN. I'm Guan Xing in Beijing. Thank you for being with us. The Point with Liu Xin is coming up next. Stay tuned.